If you've been waiting for Power to get back to its roots that made you fall in love with the show, this is the season. No doubt about it. Like, they got everything right, and I am loving it. Hey everyone, Just Be here, and I'm going to do a breakdown of Power Book 4 Force, aka The Tommy Show, Season 2, Episode 1, from start to finish. If you're new to the channel, guys, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Help your boy out, grow his small channel into something that people can be able to get some more reach and enjoy, right? I like making these videos for you guys and having conversations about the shows and various things in the comment section, and just man, just little tappy tap. That's it. Like, that's all, man. That's all. All right. So let's get right into it. This episode was amazing. I have no complaints. And I think that I knew going into this season, based off the way how, if you guys saw my previous video, Joseph Sikora, who plays Tommy, was hyping it up, how other people were hyping it up. They got a new producer on. He was a producer. His name's Gary Lennon. He was a producer on the original OG Power. They created that tone. They created that story. They created that feel, that look, that sound of the OG Power in Tommy's show, and that's exactly what we were looking for. I had called it as a prediction that that's probably what was gonna happen, and it did. This episode was fire, bro. Like, from beginning to end, the way how it flowed, the way how it paced, the way how the dialogue was structured, the action, like the character development, I love it, right? So let's break it down from start to finish, because I think there's so many great things inside here, and we're in store for a great season of Tommy. So the first shot that we see coming into this new season is Tommy hitting the bottle because he's lost another friend. We knew how the whole show ended with the OG Power. He lost Ghost, and so now he's reminiscing over Liliana, who I really think they shouldn't have killed off the show. It was premature, but it is what it is. And so now he's thinking back upon the relationship that he built with her in such a short time, and that made him feel as if he had someone he could rely on again, and they were building, the organization, and that's someone that he can trust, that had his back, and now he's down. Because it's like, man. So now he starts to hear voices in his head, and he's hearing Liliana speak to him from beyond the grave. But he's drunk and probably high at the same time, so we got to give it to them. But he's basically hearing Liliana's voice telling him to avenge her death, right? And he's telling her, listen, I'm going to do it. Whoever did this from the Flynn family, I'm going to make sure that they pay. And at the same time, I'm going to take over Chicago. So look out for the season. Tommy is out for blood. So then we see him. He's now hunting down the Flynn men. So he's going after everyone that he knows is connected to the Flynn family. Those who were the hitters, those who were the soldiers, those who were the bodyguards that were working for Walter. And he's like, look, who did this? Who took out Liliana? Give me a name. And this is OG, cut him up, Tommy. He's not playing any game. The way how he takes this guy out is hilarious. So he kind of slices her face, and with how Liliana had the scar on her face, and it's just the Tommy we love from back in the day, and we see him just being just savage mode with it. Hold on real quickly. You guys want to see something crazy? Over 99% of you guys that watch my content are not subscribed. So I'm asking real quickly, if you don't mind, just hit the like button and hit subscribe real quickly. I'd love to keep on giving this content to you guys, and lets me know that people actually are interested. Feel free to do that, man. Really appreciate it a lot. Would help me out a long way in growing my small channel. Thanks. Now back to the video. Then we cut to the scene now with, and this is always a big thing for me, where establishing Tommy in a family structure that seems organic and not forced. So I think season 1, they brought together him having a brother and him having a nephew, and it was kind of forced, but now it seems like there's a bit more of a family element that's now more settled. Mind you, this episode only takes place about 2 days after the season 1 finale, but now you can see D-Max back home from the hospital from getting shot, and then you can see now Tommy's brother is also here, and Tommy's mom's also here as well, and they are all operating, I don't want to say a big happy family, but it's a unit. And now that's important because it establishes Tommy to have something now to lose later on in the season. So more, like people say, more money, more problems. In this business, more family, more people you love, that's more risk. So yeah, it's good that he has them, but that's more risk. The other kind of Easter egg here, I think that Kate turning down Tommy's offer for a little bit of powder in the moment to feel a little better. And you can see, like, she was kind of without makeup and all that kind of stuff. But I think what we're going to see happen in this season is Tommy's more than likely going to lose his mom, Kate. I think that's a possibility. They kind of alluded to her looking sick, and I think she might be dealing with something. Now we cut to what looks like to be the attorney's office, the district attorney's office in Chicago. And I'm not sure if this is 100% FBI setup, but it just looks like the U.S. attorney's office. And they are now putting together a war room similar to how we have one in book 2, how we had one in book 1. They're putting together a war room to figure out who are these new players, but specifically who is this guy who is basically like a ghost. Again, they're very heavy-handed this episode with references by saying things like Casper the Friendly Ghost, by saying who is this guy who's like a ghost. So now Tommy and Samson, they are now working together to form their own organization after the big split with CBI last season. So Jannard has taken half of CBI, and then you have Samson and Tommy now working together and taking another half of CBI. So you now see split scenes with both sides talking with their crew and saying, look, who's here, who's loyal, who's faithful, who's down for the cause, who is ready to make some money. And this is where loyalties are going to be tested. Right, and we see that happen later on in the episode as well. But basically, they need to determine like who's for us, who's against us, and if you're not with it, then just you need to speak up right now. And so they're establishing their footholds in their territory so that people know this is where we're going to operate, this is where we're not going to operate, this is where we're going to move product, this is where we're not going to move product. And so it's interesting to see it because now the crew is like, okay, we rocking with you, Samson, but who is this white boy, right? Referring to Tommy. And so Tommy's pulls up and it's like, this guy sitting here like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Again, another reference. And he's like, look, I'm no ghost. And that's just the writers kind of playing around with us because, again, ghost. Yes, we get it. So that's just the writers throwing those things in there to kind of remind us. But it's also saying that, look, Tommy's not ghost. Tommy's his own character. And we're going to see him more established this season, particularly because we have a whole, basically, this kind of like a soft reboot of Force, in my opinion. Now, one thing to look out for this season, I think, has a lot to do with Samson, because now Samson and Tommy are talking, and he has to get a new parole officer because the last one that he had, was actually being paid off, more than likely by Jannard, but the parole officer was being paid off by CBI just to make sure that he kept his brother out of prison so that he can continue to work with them. But now I can see that Samson's getting a little bit worried that he should not be taking that much heat because now he may find himself back in prison if he's not careful. And as someone who just came out of prison, spending 15 years in there, he's very, very, very cautious now. Even though he wants to be a part of the game's in his blood, he's just like, look, I don't want to go back there. Right, so I think we're going to see this play a lot into his loyalty this season to CBI, to Tommy. So now we cut to Walter talking with Brendan Doyle. He's one of the representatives from Dublin. Dublin is where the Flynn family gets all of their connections, all of their supply, and so on and so forth to make it happen in Chicago. So he's talking with them and just making it known that, listen, you owe us some money, and we sent the 4 horsemen who are big hitters last season to help you out. So now we're down our biggest assassins, and also we're down a lot of money and product from you. So we need you to pay up now. And so that's basically, the mob calling in, their loan essentially, or whatever it is that Walter owes. And so Walter, because he wasn't listening to Claudia last season, he's a bit down financially. And he can't admit it. But basically, Brendan says, look, you need to give this money to us like ASAP. And Walter's trying to negotiate for more time to go ahead and get it. But he's like, listen, you might have been able to get away with that with my father, but I'm not my father. This is me. This is my generation. Here is when you need to have our money back to us, and here's how much you need to have back to us. And so I think we're going to see this particular season where Walter isn't going to be as strong as he thought he was, and he's going to need to rely on Claudia and Vic a lot more to help him out. So Vic is missing Gloria, and he's down bad, and he's just like Tommy. He's in mourning. He's grieving Gloria after finding out that his dad was responsible for her death. And so he is ignoring calls from his dad because he's simply just trying to figure out what his next move is. So we're going to see Vic probably rise up from being the scared, little kid who needed his balls to drop to now see him take on a more serious role this season. And Diamond has a new parole officer, and the parole officer is basically coming at him hard and saying, look, we know the last guy before he got fired was on your payroll. The new parole officer telling him, that ain't gonna cut it, that ain't gonna fly. I'm gonna make sure that you show up on time, no more being late, and any slip-ups, particularly if we catch you working with someone that is a criminal, you're going back to prison. So that's why I think Diamond is now being marked as a very, very possible likelihood that him and Tommy might have some beef later on in the season, and Tommy might see him as a liability. And so I think we can expect that to also happen as well. So Tommy is on the warpath. He is following Walter around, but Walter's too guarded. Walter's men are with him. Walter knows that Tommy's coming for him. So Walter's going to go visit his kids to try to get their help, and Tommy is in the cut trying to find him, man, and trying to get that shot in, but he can't because he's guarded. And then we see now Walter talking with his kids, trying to get their help, because the reality is that Dublin now wants their money back, but also the Serbians from last season, Walter made enemies of the Serbians. And so there are multiple targets. There's a lot of heat on the Flynns right now, right? You got Tommy, you got the Serbs, you got Dublin. And so right now he's telling them, we gotta be together as one. I think that's going to put Walter in a very, very vulnerable place this season. He needs help and doesn't seem like he has any support from anyone. So he's one to watch out for. And typically when you are someone that's backed into a wall like that, yeah, you're dangerous. This is when we see Claudia and Vic get together and say, forget that. We're going to go 50-50 in our own organization, and we're going to make stuff happen, and we're going to make him think that we're going to work with him. I don't know about you guys, though, but the guy who plays Vic, I mean, he used to be in this Disney Channel show called, I think it was Good Luck Charlie. It's hard to not see him as that character, but, maybe have him smile a lot less this season, because it looks good so far, but he needs to come off more stronger. You can't have him just looking like he's the kid, right? I understand he's young, but, we don't need, he needs to break out of Disney Channel kind of Vic version of himself, and he needs to break into, this the life, this the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to be serious over here. We got to be stone cold killer. So let's hope Vic breaks out. So JP's really pressing hard on working with Tommy, and Tommy's like, no, I can't have it, man. Like, I want to keep you and D-Max separate from the business. I can't have it anymore. You're my family. And again, that still places Tommy in a vulnerable place, because he has more. It's good to have the family, but that's more people that are more risk to him, and his enemies find out who his family is. They can use that against him. But JP is very pressed on working with him. Tommy says no. So Tommy actually bought JP a bar. And so he takes JP to the bar, gives him the keys, said, it's all yours, fully paid for. It was cheap. You don't got to pay rent anymore in your own spot. Worry about people busting in your windows and taking from you, and you having to pay off, the local mob. So that's a good thing for Tommy to do. That shows you that their relationship is improving. And this is just an example of just character bonding, character development. We now see Tommy going from being this solo dolo guy really more towards most of last season, but now you see they're giving him more of connections and just with his family. And I think that's very important for character, because now the stakes will be higher because we feel like he has something to lose. And so when we're watching this season, we're gonna feel like, oh man, just Tommy, don't make that move, man. That might cause you, don't do that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that for sure. So now we got the U.S. Attorney's Office. They found Tommy's car at the bar that he just bought. And so they're fingerprinting it and trying to identify who he is. Keep in mind, at this stage, they don't know who he is because as far as everyone's concerned, this guy is a ghost because the real Tommy was actually killed as far as the New York U.S. Attorney's Office is aware of from season 1 of Ghost, that Tommy died in a car explosion. And so legally he's dead. So, no one knows who this guy is. And Chicago's a big place, So they're trying to find out and ID him. So now we cut to Claudia and Lauren, who she kidnapped at the end of last season and put her in a lab, forcing her to keep making Dahlia for her organization. And Lauren is begging for her life at this stage. Like, listen, please. I mean, I can just give you the recipe and you can have somebody else do it. Just let me go, bro. But Claudia's not having it. And she's trying to be all threatening and whatnot. But I'm sure, Claudia, you're not that threatening. I mean, if you had some hitters with you or something like that, or some bodyguards or someone, but I don't see it in the immediate as Claudia being someone to fear. And that's probably why Lauren felt as if she could just keep opposing her and saying, I don't gotta do this. I'm gonna be here. Just let me go. So Gennard's making the rounds, and this is where we get our first introduction to Miguel Garcia. He is the connect for CBI and has been for many years. And Gennard's coming to him asking if he can just have a little bit more time to pay back the rest of what he owes for this run's supply. And Miguel is like, we've never had a problem before. We don't need to have a problem now. Give me my money by the end of the week, or you're going to end up like the guy in the back room who I'm basically beating to a pulp with a wrench. So Gennard, he's like, you'll have your money. And so he's going to find a way to make it happen some way, form, or fashion. So they're trying to set up Miguel as that guy for us to be fearful of. But I do think that based on what we see further on, that Miguel is more or less going to be a family guy. And so let's see. We come to now a new side. We're in a new side of Chicago that we haven't seen in the show. And I forgot what they called it. It was Little Something. But we're at a point now where this is a whole different culture of people. We can see it, right? It's a whole different side of the territory. And they got to be careful how they're moving over here. Yeah, we've been, getting the supply from you for years. But now we're seeing the crossover, interacting with more characters on this side in a deeper level than just transactional. So, we're entering some new spaces. And plus, with them making Miguel more of a known figure this season, I think we know to expect him to be a major player that's going to be very, very dangerous. And this is also important too, because in the show, the challenge with the first season was you needed to have a clear person at the top of the food chain who is to be feared, right? Remember we had Lobos in season 1 of Power. Like, you always got to have that person who is like, we can't cross this person, right? And here's why. So you got to have that clear hierarchy so that there is some sort of known, we feel like there's some sort of threat. We feel like there's some sort of risk if things don't stay in line, and it just makes everything more interesting. Miguel immediately doesn't like Tommy. He didn't like the fact mainly because Tommy came in and was basically threatening and getting into almost of a fight with one of his soldiers. But then he doesn't like the fact that Diamond actually didn't let him know in advance what was going on. And he had to basically hear it from the streets that he and Gennard split up. So now there's a trust factor that has to be rebuilt there, even though he just connect. But still, I need to know that you guys got things on lock, and I like to be surprised about certain things. So again, head honcho, they call him Jefe, right? Head honcho at this stage, top of the food chain. So he is someone definitely to be feared and not played around with. And this is where we get our introduction to Miguel's sister, Miera, who is going to be Tommy's love interest clearly in this season. Y'all know But Tommy, when he falls in love, man, it don't work out all the time. Just saying. Yeah, bad track record. You got Holly, you got Keisha, you got Gloria. I mean, it just doesn't work out for the brother. It presents an interesting dynamic because Tommy is deeply into the life, and he's like, I want to take over. I want to make sure that I'm running Chicago and have the biggest organization I can possibly have. But Mieta, she's a nurse. She doesn't like what her brother does at all, and she's made that adamantly clear. But yet she finds herself attracted to Tommy, and Tommy's attracted to her. So now she has a conflict within herself, and like, how is this going to work? So I think we know what happens on these shows. I think the only person who's going to bend in this situation is going to be her. She'll find herself compromising more and more and more because she's going to fall for Tommy. And that's going to play an interesting role in the whole relationship between these two and also Miguel. Now we get our first introduction to Shanti, also known as Showstopper. She is a known boxer in Chicago, and championships and all that kind of stuff. You can see that, she's a pro. Jannard himself is also into boxing, and he also provides her with products, so he's getting his cash from her, and you can see they got a vibe going on. You can see he's like, all right, I see you, and she's flirting heavy, and he's like, I'm trying to keep it professional, blah blah blah, but I see you, babe, but he keeps it moving, and that's how you gotta be, man. You just gotta do you for a second, and sometimes you don't chase it. You know what I'm saying? She tells him, listen, we should get in the ring sometime. And I know in his mind, it's like, yeah, there's only one ring I want to get in with you, and it ain't the ring out there. And so the biggest thing I think that they revealed in this episode that's gonna set the precedent for the rest of the season and probably the rest of the show is this. So now Tommy's intentions for what he wants to do with the rest of his life are now made clear. They've now just given him direction. And that is, he says to Diamond on the rooftop, aren't you tired of being at the bottom of the top? Tommy wants to take over everything. He says that, why we got to deal with Miguel? Why can't we take him out and just become the Connect ourselves directly with the cartel? And that's the kind of talk that really goes back to a lot of what Ghost and Tommy were doing in OG Power and how they took out all their connects, and it was something where, again, going back to the whole premise of the show, it's called Power. So you're going to keep wanting more and more and more of it. And that's what we're seeing here happening. The Serbs come running up on Tommy and Diamond saying that the territory you're on is ours. Jannard gave it to us. Remember the last season, Jannard now started to partner with the Serbs and whatnot. But Tommy and Diamond and the crew that's around them stands their ground and is like, I don't care what Jannard gave you. This is ours. Go find your own and you go deal with Jannard on that. And also, y'all owe me for how much I paid for protection from y'all. And I still wasn't protected. And Liliana still died. So y'all need to get out of here before I smoke y'all. Now the Serbs run up on Jannard and said, you gave me the territory, and then these guys are saying that's still theirs. What's going on? And so they make a punch and bag out of him and said, you need to make it right quickly or else it's your life on the line. And so you can see now Jannard has pure problems on his hands. So now we're back at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the feds there finally ran the prints on Tommy, and they identified him as Tommy Egan. And at this stage, again, they didn't know who he was, but they've connected him back to Ghost in New York and said that, look, this is now someone to fear, right? This is someone to be concerned about, because the Southern District in New York, they weren't able to get this guy for years, right? And they weren't able to get his partner either. So he's going to be a problem for us. And so now they are going to put together a task force specifically for Tommy. So break out the whiteboards, people. You know how we got our whiteboards inside these feds offices, and they have all the strings drawn, the lines drawn, the connecting who to who to who to who. Same thing with Book 2 Ghosts. Same thing with OG Power. Well, and now here it is, right? They're ready to figure out how to take this guy down. They weren't able to get him before, but now he's here in Chicago, and this is good. I always thought that the first season did not have enough of this. They had just some of the same guys in the Fed's office, but it's like kind of like two of them just doing some light investigating and whatnot, but it wasn't enough. To have the core essence of Power, you got to have the street element, and you also got to have the law enforcement element just as strong. And you have to feel the tension on both sides really starting to collide into one another in order to fully appreciate the risks and the possibilities that your favorite characters may or may not make it out of a particular situation. So I'm glad now they're assembling a Fed task force. We're going to see probably more detectives and all that kind of stuff come together and really, really, really be on Tommy. So look for that heat to be on Tommy this season. And one of my predictions is that they're going to find out Tommy is associated with Diamond. And I believe they're probably going to use Diamond to go ahead and make him maybe an informant, on the organization. Is Diamond going to flip? That's a big question, because if that does happen, snitches get stitches. He's done. And what happens if Tommy takes Diamond out? Does Jannard come after Tommy? So all of these things to consider right now. And I think Tommy's also going to be in a vulnerable state, if that were to happen. I mean, he's already lost so many partners, and now he's someone he trusts. And so if Diamond was to, flip on Tommy, I think that would really deeply hurt him, and we'd see him just turn into pure, ghost face killer. Like, that's it. And the last scene of the episode is Tommy, hoodie style, running up on Chewie, who basically Diamond told him flipped, and he went from our CBI side over to Jannard's CBI side. And so, listen, the brother was running his mouth a lot, right? And acting like he was all hard and whatnot. So Tommy throws the hoodie on, Ghost style. And like I said, they were very, very heavy-handed with a lot of the Ghost references in this episode. And pulls up on him and takes him out. Literally in the back of a sign, or in the front of a sign that says, "Stop the violence," Tommy violently kills him. So that was very tongue-in-cheek for the writers to go ahead and do. And that's just basically letting you know that Tommy this season, he ain't playing around. Like, he's on another one. And that's that, man. So that's the breakdown for Season 2, Episode 1, Tommy's Back. And I think we could almost consider this a soft reboot of the show. The tone of it is very, very different. It just gave me such OG Power vibes. This is the Tommy show that we have been wanting. This is it. This is not the season that you guys want to miss and sleep on. I loved every second of it. I tried to find reasons to complain about it. Honestly, I couldn't. I enjoyed myself thoroughly. And so, what do you guys think about what's going to happen this season? There's a lot of things that dropped inside here from a recap perspective, but I might have missed some things and some clues that you guys may have seen. Feel free to let me know in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, guys. Until next time, peace.